Aren't you a Gen Z yourself?
No, I'm a baby millennial. That means I've got to worry about taxes, and I don't know what fleek is.
Topical reference from
Just
10
stop.
years ago.
Please stop.
You're nailing it.
On the Dallas Opera Network, you're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it is America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm your host, George Cederquist, joined by Oliver Camacho, Matt Cummings, Weston Williams, and Ashlee Hardgrave. All right, this week, Ashlee kicks off a new segment about the stories behind the musical moments that punctuate sports history. Plus, 2-minute drill. Never before has a world premiere opera been so on brand for the OBS. Get this. Gods of the Game, a football opera.
EA Sports, it's in the game.
So excited to get to that. Hey, if you're watching on TDO, Dallas Opera Network, make sure you subscribe to our podcast. You want to get the full show, Stitcher, Spotify, click follow, or if you're on Apple Podcasts, you just smash that plus sign. Tweet or email us your thoughts at OperaBoxScore, operaboxscore@gmail.com. You want that OBS beer coaster. I know it. You want that OBS lapel pin, and you get it. You just share your hot take. It's that simple.
Amazing.
Oliver Camacho, there he is, wearing the red and white of Canada.
You know, it is Canada at the Australian Open. Now, the women's game is a disaster right now, so I won't talk about that. But two of my boys, Denis Shapovalov and Felix Auger-Aliassime, have made it into the quarters. And maybe by the time you're listening to this, they've been eliminated, but I'm so proud of these boys. Auger-Aliassime is playing like a beautiful Greek god, and he took out former U.S. Open champion Marin Cilic. And the biggest surprise so far is Denis Shapovalov, who's like this little Eminem. He's like a rapper, and like he's like too cool, you know. He beat the Olympic gold medalist Sasha Zverev, which was a huge upset. Zverev was expected to be in the finals. So I'm all for Team Canada. I'm wearing my Canadian colors. I've got this beautiful flag flying in my apartment right now. So.
Man, you are really feeling it. That's awesome. Matt Cummings on the show this week.
Celebrating my first weekend of having to dig out my car. Happy winter, Chicago.
Tis the season.
Weston Williams, do you have a car to dig out?
I do. It is square and looks like a toaster.
Excellent. Ashlee, you made it.
Das Vidanya, everybody. The Russians didn't get me.
Well, they did, but you had a daring escape. There were lasers. You had all sorts of James Bond gadgets.
Yes. If you're watching us on video, I'm coming to you live from my dark bunker where I'm hiding from the Russian opera mafia. Just kidding.
In
this
Arkansas.
Is the best life that I could mushroom. Yes, in the state of Pope County in Arkansas. I don't know. The joke is over.
You get
Just
football
not
down
Ashlee.
I do. Well, here's the thing. I thought I was going to live a long, happy life. That was taken down by at least 5 to 7 years after the football playoffs this weekend. The Bills-Chiefs game, if you haven't heard about it, you will. My goodness, a lifetime can happen in 13 seconds. Also, the NFL overtime rules are a little bit bogus, but none of this matters because both Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are out of the playoffs, so it is a beautiful time to be alive.
And they're replaced by Denis Shapovalov and Felix Auger-Aliassime.
If they can play running back, I'm down for it.
Here's the thing, right? So I am a Lions fan first. I'm a Bears fan second. I'm not a Packers fan. I clearly don't like the Packers. I clearly don't like Aaron Rodgers. What I do like is the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. And while I'm happy that the Packers are not in the next round, there is something so picturesque about playing NFL playoff football at Lambeau. The snow was coming down.
Sub-zero temperatures were had by all.
Just so gorgeous. And then poor little Karen Rodgers' tears were freezing on his face. Let's talk some opera.
Chalk Talk on Opera Box Score.
There are stories behind all of these different types of music. The stories behind the roles that music plays in these punctuated moments within sports history. And believe it or not, how the reverse happens. How sports punctuates the history of our genre. These super fun backstories that, like, you didn't know you needed. So today, I'm going to tell you how BBC made a Turandot aria the prevailing anthem for world soccer.
Please tell.
Signore Ascolta?
So close.
Costa
So very, very close. So, it's 1990. The World Cup is happening. The BBC, the British Broadcasting Company, is getting ready to cover the World Cup. Producers there choose a 1972 recording of Luciano Pavarotti singing Nessun Dorma with the London Phil and Zubin Mehta, and they use it as the soundtrack to their credits. Now, let's think, this is a big risk for the BBC to use this. Most sports coverage of this time, 1990, had like 80s rock and synthesizers, decidedly not a 1926 opera aria, but a producer wanted to capture this emotive and dramatic nature of the World Cup and was fixated on like the swells and the soars of this aria, and most importantly, the word vincerò, which is I will win. Got it. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the games that year were in Italy, so it seemed like a match. So initially, the producers matched this aria with a clip of Marco Tardel's ecstatic celebration after scoring in the 1982 World Cup. And this is a clip they put together for the World Cup draw, just the draw. It went over so well that they decided to go for total emotional manipulation, and they use the aria as the opening and the end credits. Pretty much any place they could jam it in during BBC's World Cup coverage, they put it in. There's an article that was on the website The 42, which talks about the creation of this, and I quote, "Producers used the image of Tardelli as he ran away." I said Tardel earlier, excuse me. Producers used the image of Tardelli as he ran away with his arms spread and mouth wide open in delirium. As the climax came, it was a mix of current and past grace, which we graphically stylized to fit in with the overall feel of the titles, and of course with the music. Tardelli's celebration was the crucial shot for the finale, mouth agape to the mirror of Pavarotti's voice.
The original lip sync for your life.
None shall sleep indeed.
Yes.
Maybe I'm the only person on the panel who remembers this happening in real time. So Italia 90, that was my second World Cup after Mexico City in 86. And I remember this voice. I did not, of course, know who Pavarotti was at the time, or Tardelli for that matter. But I remember those images synchronized with that voice and being like, this is absolutely incredible.
I have to tell you, the editing on this, we have this clip also, so I can show it to you, but man, let me tell you, the editors deserve every Emmy imaginable. It really is. It tugs at your heartstrings. If you can divorce yourself from, like, what's actually happening, because Koloff kind of sucks, but if you're thinking about just the words I will win as you're watching these victorious, football players running around and, mouth agape and embracing, it's amazing. It is absolutely epic. And I'm not the only one that thought so. Football fans went wild for this collaboration on the BBC. So by the time the tournament reached the semis, 26 million people were tuning into BBC's broadcasts and seeing this every day. So people who never knew who he was or what the opera was, Gesundheit Oliver, suddenly were half singing Nessun Dorma all over the place. So you could hear people just, humming this along. They recognized this tune, not knowing anything about opera. So it becomes a big deal, it becomes a big hit, and in turn, a lot of people who didn't know who Pavarotti was all of a sudden do, and he becomes this big stock within pop culture. The recording at the time was like 20 years old. It hit number 2 on the UK charts in 1990.
Wow.
And that's back when charts used to mean something.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
people still bought
Meant
CDs.
something, yes.
And listened to
And
the
the hype-
radio.
Exactly. And the telly. The hype only heightened. So Pavarotti goes to perform the aria in concert at Rome on the eve of the 1990 Italia World Cup final. This concert was coincidentally also the first performance of the Three Tenors, who also performed Nessun Dorma together. So you get the birth of this pop culture sensation and then followed by a second pop culture sensation, all on the eve
original
of the
Il
World Cup
Divo.
final. That is correct.
The original
That is-
boy band.
This also feels like the origin story for how we got the Aretha Franklin Nessun Dorma from the Grammys.
Oh, absolutely.
We will get into that one in another segment. I have an entire analysis
So excited.
and thoughts and feelings. She's got her purse. She puts it on the piano. She goes. It's amazing. She splits the word Vincero into 18 syllables. It's incredible. So Pavarotti now has this huge thing in his pocket, and he really ends up becoming, sort of not the anthem singer, but the anthem singer for all of these different sports events, most specifically in Italy. It becomes what we would call his sports swan song. And it was actually his last public performance as well. 2006 Winter Olympics in Torino, year before his death.
Probably a step down.
Yes. That's how it is. But at any rate, BBC turned Nessun Dorma into a prevailing anthem for world soccer, and it's been going for 30 years strong, even most recently as Euro 2020, when it was performed by Andrea Bocelli, where the scene of the crime, Roma, Italia.
Amazing.
What I'm hearing you say is that this is the anthem, throw all your hands up.
Yeah.
A delayed reaction to that Good Charlotte reference. Making it
That's well done.
1997
Like,
again through
there
fear
was
or magic.
there was air
Right.
between the joke and the laugh. Like it was a pause.
What's Italian for I'm coming out, so you better get this party started?
Yeah,
we
yeah.
should
Well,
should
any
find out,
aria di
but-
sortite would fit that, But what we should figure out, what we should get ahead of this, and we should figure out what is the unmined great aria that can be the next sports anthem.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Something for Team Canada.
Oh, I can't think of any maple syrup based operas, unfortunately.
Yeah. Would it be in French or in English? Depends on how far East or West
Okay,
you
well,
are,
we
I
could
suppose.
we could put that to our listeners to think of one, and we'll come back to you next time we do the segment with our.
Would
ideas.
anyone but Celine Dion sing it?
It does need to be sort of like eminently singable, right? And I'm not saying that anyone can sing Nessun Dorma, but kind of anybody can sing Nessun Dorma.
I mean, well,
if
I
you're
think
a
that there's
football fan and you've had enough pints in you, you can really soar on those tops.
I mean, that's correct. More importantly, what I'm going to amend, I'm going to yes and your suggestion and say that it needs to be able to be half sung by boundless groups of hooligans. We need a bunch of drunk Scotsmen and Irishmen and Englishmen leaning back and forth and half singing this with no syllables whatsoever.
Be
That's
kind
okay.
and courteous is definitely the winner.
I mean, we've fallen a long way when the anthem for Euro 2020 when England won was "Sweet Caroline."
Good
It's
times, never
Phenomenal
cease.
that Pavarotti was 20 years old. I mean, he was in American.
No, he wasn't
terms-
20-year-old. You're confused.
the recording. He
The
was 20
recording
years
was
old.
20
The
years old.
recording was 20 years old. So the recording that they used in 1990.
Thank you for. I was
This from
confused. I was like, this is.
1972.
Yeah, that would involve a little bit of time travel, which might have been a little difficult for the budget of the BBC at the time.
Good call. Bad call. On Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call to wrap it up, to take you home wherever you're going. Thanks again for hanging out with us on the show this week. We're going to kick it off with Oliver Camacho and a good call or a bad call.
I've got the same call as last week. The Met broadcast on Saturday the 29th, which is maybe the day after you're listening to this podcast, is Rigoletto, starring friend of the show Quinn Kelsey, and he's been getting great reviews for his portrayal of the title role of Rigoletto, so go check that out on the radio, also featuring Rosa Faola as Gilda and Piotr Bechawa as the Duke.
It's a pretty great cast.
Matt Cummings.
So Julian Fellows' new show about the Gilded Age starts this week, and is it probably going to be Downton Abbey copy-pasted to a turn of the century America, trying to convince us that the aristocracy
so.
is good and they should have all the power? Yes. But am I going to watch it because I'll do anything for Christine Baranski? Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I am. The woman, a big opera fan, she's appeared next to just about every Broadway performer who has ever lived through The Good Wife and Fight. I think Audra McDonald's on the show too. I know the cast list goes on and on and on, but those are the two that caught my eye, so I will be watching it.
Weston Williams.
I have a bad call. I would like to apologize for earlier when I was trying to think of a quintessential Gen Z bit of slang and I said fleek, because I feel like I'm really bringing my millennial generation back by being chuggy. So I'd like to apologize for being chuggy to my fellow millennials.
Did you work for the New York Times editorial board? Come on.
Yes, he sure does.
Ashlee Hardgrave.
Going double back on the HBO tip, there's another show that has just started on HBO called Somebody Somewhere, and it is incredible. There's only 2 episodes out so far. Bridget Everett is fantastic. She's also a cabaret singer in her own right who's like super legit. But she stars in a really incredible drama about loss and finding oneself, and it is a delight, and I encourage all of you to check it out.
My bad call is that classical artists are not on the Grammy Awards when they're live in person. I don't get it. Even just one classical category should be on that show. It is time for change. That is it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio Show about opera. Our announcer is Norm Woodel. He's at normwoodel.com. On Facebook, search for Opera Box Score. On Twitter and Instagram, we're at Opera Box Score, where you can email us your hot takes, operaboxscore@gmail.com. Help us deepen the bench of listeners, liking and sharing on the social media posts. Drop us a line, get that OBS beer coaster, the OBS lapel pin, just for sharing your own hot take. Our creative consultant is Oliver Camacho. Our audio and video editor is Weston Williams. For your co-hosts, Matt Cummings and Ashlee Hardgrave, I'm George Cederquist, asking you to continue the conversation about opera as you start your own campaign to get the classical Grammys on the televised broadcast. #FreeClassicalGrammys. It's MMYS at the end. We're back with an all-new show next week when we induct an American birthday boy into the OBS Hall of Fame. Plus you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more agony of defeat. Join us.